Hey, all right. Welcome back, everyone, to MSA. Got another wonderful story to bring to you today. It never ceases to amaze me when you hear these kinds of things going on. Carl HIGBIE of NewsMax just went off on Chris Mathews. And why? Because the left is going to the extreme again. Fear-mongering. Now, we're all privy to it. We get it. We understand it. It's something that a lot of people like to do because then they can sincerely put their words out there to help instill fear in those that don't pay attention to anything else. You know, you got people that are really loyal to MSNBC, CNN, you know, those types of news media channels. And when they put their experts out there and their analysts and, oh my gosh, it's the worst thing since sliced bread. We've never seen anything like it. You start hearing these buzzwords going across all these different news channels, and it amazes me what they do. Either way, do us a favor. Again, we're right in the beginning of all this, so you're going to hear me ask, like, share, and subscribe. I know it. You know, we share all these videos anyway. Keep sharing. Just keep sharing. Send to people. You're sitting next to a guy on a bus. Ask him to send him the video. The more, the merrier. The more we can get out there, the better off all of us are in the long run. Okay, now, let's get into this thing. Why is HIGBIE going off on this Chris Mathews? Now, if you don't know who Chris Mathews is, which some people don't because it's where he's from. He used to be on MSNBC, and he was fired, what they called, he was being a sexist and all these different things. And actually, he made some comments that had to do with Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders and all that kind of stuff. And we have a feeling that's why he ended up losing his job. But prior to all that, Chris Mathews was one of the guys that continuously for years was always talking about this collusion between Trump and Putin and how this Russia stuff and Russia and, Vladimir must have some stuff on Trump and he's going to blackmail him for other things and all this rigmarole that went around for the longest time. And Chris Mathews likes to stretch reality. That's the nicest way to say it. So we've got a clip that we're going to play for you. You're going to hear Carl going off about Mr. Mathews, and you're going to hear what Mathews had to say first that got him heated. Then we're going to come back and discuss that. Then we've got another clip that we're going to play that is really going to spell out what this is about, what got him so fired up. And if you're like I am, you'll understand what got him fired up, because a lot of us that are just trying to live within some type of realm of normalcy are just tired of all of these words and phrases that people use to try to describe who we are when it doesn't actually describe who we are. Anyway, we're going to get to this clip real quick and we'll be right back. So hang in there. See you in a minute.
With 2024 basically here, Trump is surging, Biden and the Democrats are flopping on every front, and they're going to turn to a campaign of fear. Mark it, 12/27, we said it right here. The next play is to make every American value that we hold near and dear into some anti-state terrorist view, and they're already starting.
In this case, it's rural race. They are so angry at the liberal establishment, the coastal elite. They look at people on television, they say, oh, those people on Saturday Night Live, those snarling rich kids, I know who they are. They're all trust funders. They don't have to worry about us. And the regular guy in the country goes, there they are snarling and making fun of us again. And every time we make fun of Trump, we're making fun of them. That's the weird, it's a weird thing. But in a way, it's like fighting terrorism. I mean,
that was Chris Mathews on MSNBC. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, anyone, he just calls anyone who disagrees with his ivory tower monolithic view of groupthink, they call us terrorists. Nice, Chris. And these people, they never look introspectively. It's never, hey, what can I do differently? No. It's always, always, always. What the hell is the matter with everyone else? Why don't they think exactly like us coastal elites? And you know what angers me the most about watching these clowns on TV talking down to middle America is that these people and their lofty lifestyles wouldn't last 10 seconds without the heartbeat of America. Who do you think grows your food, Chris Mathews? You go to a grocery store in a big city. That food was grown, something you could never do, by the way, likely by someone without a college degree, delivered on a truck that you would have no idea how to drive, shipped in heavy boxes that I bet you couldn't even lift. And when you pick up that organic vegetable out of the fridge in the store, you should know that the electricity being delivered by the fuel that was mined or pumped out of the ground by the same people you just called terrorists, that same fuel that you think we shouldn't use because of climate change while you sit in your massive air-conditioned house. And your ignorant and divisive rhetoric is broadcast over wires that were all hung across the same middle America 200 feet above the ground by linemen who climbed up there and risked their lives to put food on their families' tables. Another thing you couldn't do, Chris. And all this, including your right to say whatever the hell you want, is protected by police who have to wear bulletproof vests to work every day because your rhetoric, Chris, has made people hate cops. In a nation that is protected by an all-volunteer military that is being attacked all over the world because you carried water for Joe Biden to become the commander-in-chief. Another reality you can't even comprehend is the real-world consequences of. I'd pay for the plane ticket to see you try to survive in a war zone, Chris. So you want to know why people like me and the huge swath of this country don't like you and your cohorts? That's why. You insult everyone who doesn't think exactly like you and never consider for a second that it might be you that's wrong. And why? Because you talk to a camera for a living? Maybe try walking into a diner. Try talking to Americans instead of your liberal echo chamber. I challenge you to live one day in the life of any Trump-supporting middle American that you just called terrorists. You and your soft, non-calloused hands wouldn't last 5 seconds in that environment. Look, I know I'm a TV guy too, technically, but I've been in these trenches. I've been in combat. I worked in construction for years. And when I'm not here, I'm up at my farm teaching my kids how to grow up to be precisely the opposite of what Chris Mathews is.
Okay, you got to see that clip. He's pretty heated. Now, if you notice what he's saying to Chris Mathews there, and he's challenged him right there on the screen, said, "Hey, I dare you," there's a lot of truth to that about how a lot of us feel. And I understand where Carl's coming from. A lot of us, spent years working our tail off. And what do we have to deal with now is all this Bidenomics garbage and people coming through our borders left and right and sending billions of dollars to other countries that we don't even have when we have major problems here that really need to be addressed. And it seems like every time the Senate tries to do something, it's blocked by something, or every time Congress is getting a hold of something, it's blocked by this. We got the DOJ putting charges over on one side, but not charging anybody on the other side. And the FBI is always coming out with these things saying, well, we can't talk about that. It's an ongoing investigation. Well, it seems like all your ongoing investigations have been going on for years, and they should have been summed up if you were any good at your job. Maybe you need new personnel. Tell you who doesn't need new personnel is the IRS, because that you can put that money to use in other ways in this country. Trust me. We don't need a lot more IRS agents. We just need the ones that are there to actually be able to do their jobs. Like when Hunter Biden didn't file his taxes, they tried to do their job there and they got blocked. Imagine that. Either way, HIGBIE had an interesting way of putting the way he was pointing out for Chris Mathews is, look at how Mathews can point fingers and compare people that are not like him to terrorists. What do you suppose that's all about? Like dealing with us is like dealing with terrorists? How is that? Are we that bad? Or is it the fact that whenever we have a debate with someone that is of the left and we try to have a decent conversation, they start throwing things at us, and as we start throwing facts back at them, all they do is get mad and start to storm off or throw a fit. And so it makes it really, really difficult to have a engaging conversation with a decent outcome. Either way, we've got another clip that we're going to roll real quick, and it kind of ties into everything that we're talking about at the moment. So just sit back, watch this secondary clip. It's going to kind of tie it all together, and then we're going to come in at the last minute and do some commentary on this and see how you felt about all that. All right? Remember, anytime, hit some comments. The like button's right down there, and that share button's real easy, and especially on these phones these days, you could share it with everybody in your phone all at one time. Imagine that. Anyway, see you in a minute.
And all these facts are precisely why places like CNN must make us out to be threats.
Part of what the goal here is to make people in authority feel nervous about how they're going to rule, how they're going to prosecute, what decisions they're going to make, and the extent to which they themselves, and of course their family and children, might be exposed to violence or even the threat of violence.
You think Trump and those voting for him are intimidating judges? Now do Chuck Schumer.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the top guy in the U.S. Senate right now. Where was this analyst then? The hubris is staggering. She went on to say this.
I think the second is we are, it's about to be 2024. We are running into an election period in which violence and the threat of violence are sort of viewed as an extension of our normal democratic differences. I mean, this is one of the successes of what Donald Trump has been able to do, is to sort of, sort of to be kind of casual about violence. And that's sort of the bigger fear there.
Trump is the guy utilizing violence? He's the guy utilizing the threat of violence? Lady, the sitting vice president bailed out rioters who burned down city blocks for BLM. Not a peep then. There's more than 400 million guns in America, and we, the people she is talking about, own most of them. If we were a problem, you'd know. But this is their play. The left has set up the next election to have unrest on both sides, no matter the outcome. I mean, think about it. If Trump loses, a bunch of us, and I'm including myself in this, are going to be very angry that he was forced to spend time in courtrooms instead of on the campaign trail. We are going to think that this election was massively interfered with via the lawfare of the unlimited resources of the state in a massive, massive election interference. And for God's sakes, they're trying to kick him off the ballot. They did it in Colorado, at least for now. Thankfully, Michigan just upheld it. But without so much as a conviction, he's not guilty of anything. You don't think that makes people like me angry? But when Trump does win, think about this. The left, a huge swath of them, have been totally convinced that Trump is somehow a criminal and therefore should not have ever been on the ballot at all. They have convinced an entire swath of the Democratic Party of this. And the talking heads will somehow equate their level of outrage with some level of justification to essentially endorse an uprising. There will literally be riots in the streets, folks. This is what the left wants. They want chaos. They want to make it impossible to govern. The left wants to draw such a divide in this country that we break down. Left versus right, black versus white, urban versus rural, white collar versus blue collar. Because if we're all fighting, the god-awful policies of Joe Biden are not the headline. It's unbelievable.
So, you got to see the second clip. Now, I like the lady, I don't know her name, and she says people of authority are going to have to figure out how they're going to rule, how they're going to prosecute, that they're nervous about this. No, I think a lot of them are actually nervous from what I hear about that Jeffrey Epstein flight log coming out, because it seems like some people are going to get pretty well cooked over this one. That has actually been word on the street, as it's been swaying a lot of decisions in the Congress and in other places. Now, going forward, some of the other things that were said in there. I think Carl had a big point when it came to what's going to happen either way this election goes. You know, if Trump loses, a lot of people are going to be very upset because, of course, tampered the whole time. All these charges and charges and charges. And don't tell me there's not a two-tier justice system. I don't care what side of the party you fall on, okay? When you got a guy like Hunter Biden that was under investigation and his own attorney agreed that they were going to go ahead and do the extensions so that the statute of limitations didn't fall on the taxes that he didn't pay for certain years, and they were going to go ahead and do the extensions, and David Weiss blocked that, that right there is proof. That's proof. And why Weiss is still out walking the streets and not even answering for any of this is beyond me. It's actually beyond me. When it comes to the left, you'll notice I say the left. I don't say Democrat. And why don't I say that? Because I've heard some Democrats out there talk, and they talk like real human beings, civil individuals, people that have common sense and knowledge and look into situations and make decisions to the best of their abilities. Okay? But when I talk about the left, we're talking about people that have this agenda. This is the way things are going to be, and we're going to make sure it's going to be this way. So we have to talk a certain way. We have to act a certain way. We have to be a certain way. And we have to, look at some of the things that you hear going on in the Biden administration, okay? And then you hear some of these congressmen get up and talk like nothing's ever happened. This is all a witch hunt. This is all, really? Are you looking at the right side of the fence here? Because if you look at what they're doing to Donald Trump, it's a travesty what they're putting that man through. And why? Because he's helping the American people. And he did a good job at that. He did a fantastic job at that, as a matter of fact. So I understand why when Chris says if Trump doesn't make it through the elections, he's going to be upset about it. I know a lot of people that are going to be upset about it because our lives were a lot better when Trump was in office. Why? He doesn't fall for the deep state. He doesn't go with the left. He doesn't fall into the normal category. He falls into the categories like a lot of people do, where let's use some common sense on a lot of these decisions. People get upset over his taxes and all these things. Oh, I had to pay more taxes and all that stuff. Yeah. And you also had to pay less at the pump, less on your groceries, less on your mortgage. The stuff is endless. Okay. Now, back to this thing. Sorry, got on a soapbox for a second there. But back to this whole thing about this left and this fearmonger. Carl is hitting the head on this. I spend a lot of time doing research and facts checking things and the whole 9 yards. And a lot of the things that I keep coming up with are this whole scare tactic on how the world is just going to implode, on how we have to do this, on how we have to do these other things, and how these other people out there are just horrible, and how every Republican on the planet is just out to destroy the world. I just watched a segment the other day where Ted Cruz, whether you like him or hate him, doesn't matter, was out trying to block a Supreme Court justice nominee because she was for changing the laws that have to do with where convicted sex offenders can live, meaning that they can live near a preschool, an elementary school, a daycare center. Okay? Do you believe in any of that? He was also against another nominee that had sent a letter, I believe, to her governor, stating that they needed to let all the prisoners out of prison in that state. That's rapists, murderers. Let's just get real about all this kind of stuff. There's people out there that are on the front lines that are being made to look like the bad guy. And we need to pay attention. We need to make sense of this, America. Because guess what? This last year going into this election is going to get raw and raunchy. You saw the other segment that we did where we've got Alejandro Mayorkas and, oh my gosh, can't remember the guy's name off the head of my Anthony Blinken heading over to Mexico to talk with the Mexican government. What does that mean? You're going to go over there for several weeks and talk about how you can stop the immigration problem? I get a great idea. How about you take the National Guard and start putting them all across the border at the United States and Mexico line, and you don't let anybody in. Let's start with that. That'd be a great start. That would actually show sincerity. But instead, we're going to talk about it. What are you going to talk about? And Biden already called the Mexican president. Okay? What if Trump would have made that call? Guess what would be happening right now? You would have the Mexican military pulling up to their border and stopping people from coming across. And why? Because Trump would tell them straight up, we're going to tax the snot out of you and any goods that come into our country, which is $1 billion industry for them, if you don't stop the immigrants from coming over. So again, get ready. This fearmonger stuff is going to kick off. But you know what? I got an idea. Put it in the comments. Let me know how you feel about this. We're all over here curious to hear what you have to say. So, again, as normal, like, share, and subscribe. We really need your help trying to grow as a young channel. You hear me say it over and over and over. I'm going to keep saying it over and over and over. You got to help us. And you know what? One of these days when we hit several million subscribers, I'll stop saying it. Until then, just remember, we love all of you. Hope that whatever day, night, moment in time you happen to be in, you're having a great part of it. And life is wonderful for you. And we look forward to seeing you again. Okay? All right. Have a good one. Talk to you later. See ya.